Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fritz Kuhnlens. I am the Senior Director for Alumni Affairs for Berklee. I am delighted to have you here today. We are just going to have an amazing conversation around film scoring and advocacy. I know so many of our alumni work in the nonprofit sector, both inside the music field and outside the music field. And so I'm delighted to have our guests here today. I would be remiss if I didn't have you for a moment to shamelessly plug, of course, our engagement here in Alumni Affairs at Berklee. We, of course, plan over, I believe this year will be over 85 different programs worldwide. In this COVID time that we do live in, all of those programs are being held digitally. So we hope that you will take a time after today to go and visit our www.berklee.edu/alumni calendar and view the different events that we have coming up. So with that, I want to go ahead and introduce our panel today. I'll start off with Rupa, and I believe she is to stage right here in the video icons, although you may have them in a different order. But Rupa is an entrepreneur and a futurist based in Los Angeles. I love having conversations with futurists, mainly because I identify as a futurist myself. And so certainly, you know, it's an opportunity for us to really sort of reimagine what life can be like. And who better to do that with than with a Berklee film scorer who is constantly reimagining, you know, scenes and films and, you know, moments. Rupa, thank you very much for being here. We're so excited to bring your ideas, your entrepreneurship to bear. Rupa is the CEO of the World Women's Foundation, an amazing, amazing organization. If you have a chance to take a look at the World Women's Foundation, they're doing incredible work, incredible advocacy, really raising the profile of women leadership, women's mentorship throughout the world. And so welcome, Rupa, right? To stage left, we have Ryan Shore. Ryan is a two-time Emmy nominated and Grammy nominated composer. At Berklee, we call them film scorers, but certainly they are scoring life for sure. Ryan has worked on a series of over 65, I believe. It might actually be 75, but as a person who plays The Price is Right, I don't ever want to overshoot the limit. But so many different projects that you have participated on, and you've been a proud composer of, Ryan. So we're delighted to have you here today. I know that Ryan and I were talking right before this session. I have two kids at home, so he in our household is most known for The Tonight Show with Elmo, or Elmo Tonight. So if you haven't had a chance to check that one out, it's wonderful. But I also know that he is working currently on a couple of really, really big projects, one of which we'll say is In the Heights. And I'm sure we can't say anything more than that at this moment in terms of what we'll get to see in the upcoming months. So I'm delighted to have you here today, Ryan. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So before we get started, I thought that what we could do is take a look at the project that really sort of brought this whole event together. Both Ryan and Rupa came together to develop this project for the World Women's Foundation. It's called Looking Up. And so with that, I'm going to play the video. It's about a 4-minute video, so bear with us. And at the end of the video, we'll come back together and we'll really sort of get this conversation started.
Please give a warm welcome to Angelica Hale.
I'm just a girl, you may think I'm at a disadvantage, going out into the world, but I think I'm gonna take my chances. Cause no one ever changed a thing by being too afraid of a dream. So if I'm ever feeling down, I know that it's part of the journey. I look up to the stars in the sky. I look up and I feel so inspired to push every limit like all of the women before me. I look up in the face of my fear, won't give up till they know I was here. Won't stand in the shadows, 'cause she fought the battles before me. And she's looking up too. And she's looking up too. Use the magic of your voice and tell them what you stand for. 'Cause we don't change the world when we whisper, we change it when we roar. If you take the time to see that all you gotta do is believe. There are highs and there are lows, but the power's in finding the beauty. Oh yeah, I look up to the stars in the sky. I look up and I feel so inspired to push every limit like all of the women before me. I look up in the face of my fears, won't give up till they know I was here. Won't stand in the shadows, 'cause she fought the battles before me. And she's looking up, I am her and she is me. The ladder keeps on growing. Oh, then one day you become the hero that keeps it going. I look up to the stars in the sky. I look up and I feel so inspired to push every limit like all of the women before me. I look up in the face of my fears, won't give up so they know I was here. Won't stand in the shadows, 'cause she fought the battles before me. And she's looking up too. Hi everyone! I am so excited to be here with you all today. Thank you so much to UN Women for having me here and allowing me to perform for you guys. I've been singing ever since I was very little, and to me, music is life. This song, Looking Up, is extremely personal to me, and I'm so excited that I'm able to release this song to the world today on International Women's Day 2021. I believe that we all need a hero to look up to and that you're never too young to start pursuing your dreams. This past year has been a big struggle and, with COVID-19 affecting so many people all over the world. But I'm encouraged and inspired by the many amazing women that I've seen lead the way by contributing so much on the front lines of this pandemic to leading much of the successful vaccine development. I believe that us women are strong and that we can accomplish anything that we set our minds to. Thank you guys again so much for having me here today, and enjoy the rest of the program.
What an amazing way to kick off sort of this conversation, talking about film scoring and advocacy by seeing Angelica Hale's new single, Looking Up, of course, scored by Ryan Shore, and the project brought together by Rupa here with us today. So Ryan and Rupa, talk to us a little bit about the work that you do and sort of how this project came together. So Rupa, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So a little bit of background information on World Women Foundation. World Women Foundation works for women empowerment through education in 20+ countries. And last year we completed 50,000 mentorships around the world. And it was a moment for us to celebrate, but the pandemic happened. But definitely we wanted to use the power of creativity to share the message of the foundation and the work that we do. And as just before this session, Ryan doesn't know how famous and how popular he is in different households like us who have young kids. And similarly, the not too late with Elmo's show is also something I'm familiar because of my 7-year-old. And that's how I started digging in. And when I started to find out that that was why, and I said, this is the vibe, this is the energy that I wanted to bring in during times of crisis, and which is how I reached out to Ryan. And the moment I had conversation with Ryan, the whole team actually met Ryan, and Ryan was pouring his support and love to the movement, and we just felt incredibly humbled by his support. And then the magic happens. When you have somebody who puts his heart and mind and soul into something, just the magic happens. And maybe Ryan can speak more to that.
That is the sweetest thing I've ever heard. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, yes, Rupa reached out to me and she told me about the initiative and the World Woman Hour, the World Woman Foundation, and that she asked if I would write a song for it. I was, as Rupa mentioned, incredibly inspired. What an incredible mission the World Woman Foundation has to have created this to encourage and support women, and we chatted about what the song we would like the song to accomplish. And the first thing that I did when starting to write the song was reached out to Elizabeth Russo, who is my fiance, and she is a lyricist. And so we immediately collaborated on the song. Liz came up with the idea of titling it "Looking Up," and all the lyrical brilliance goes to Liz. She had the idea of seeing it as a ladder of inspiration where you look up to your heroes and learn from them, but as you grow and develop, then one day you become the hero for the next generation. And this song came together very quickly in that regard. I think Rupa reached out, I'm sort of doing it from memory, but maybe in October of last year. And yeah. And by the way, huge props to Angelica Hale, who sings this song so beautifully. And it's funny to even have to say, oh, and she's 13 years old, because her age doesn't even matter. Like she just, sings so phenomenally well, but she also happens to be 13 years old, which is all the more impressive. So huge props to Angelica, who is one of the heroes as well within the project, but who lent all of her talents to singing.
It's amazing that you two were able to come together and build this. I know that there's so much advocacy that takes place in the month of March around International Women's Day. And this is just such a beautiful piece. We showcased just one of the many pieces that is a part of this project. And so I encourage the audience to take a look and sort of lean into what this project has to offer and all the different stories and richness that lies below that. So Ryan, tell us a little bit about your journey. Of course, you are a Berklee alum. We love that. But tell us a little bit about your journey, at Berklee, and then of course after Berklee, and how has that journey been for you, and what other projects have sort of led you to this moment?
Well, I am a Berklee alumni. I love my alma mater, Berklee College of Music. When I think back on my days at Berklee, it's such an incredibly fond memories and such an incredibly special time, because when I think back at when I was there's something that I didn't realize until I graduated, which is once I graduated, I would interact with all kinds of different people For what I do in work, I interact with producers and directors and editors and agents and managers and all sorts of people who work in our industry, and musicians. But when I was at Berklee, it was all musicians. And when I think about how unique a time that was, that like everyone that I met when I was at Berklee, is involved in music, maybe plays an instrument or is in other aspects, and to think about those times when I was just 100% nothing but thinking about music and how special it was to learn. I just can't speak highly enough of my time at Berklee. When I graduated, I was filled with fear as to how I would be able to, build a career. And I moved to New York, and I started my career there, and I started working in film and television and theater and records and live concerts. Really, I was just doing a bunch of everything, like anything I could do just to make a living in music. And as my career progressed, I started phasing out some of the aspects that I didn't want to do as much. Like I started out doing a lot of music copy work and assisting people and climbing around on my hands and knees behind people's gear and all kinds of things. And then eventually I started phasing out the things I didn't want to do as much until I was just solely doing the things that I really love doing, which are composing and orchestrating and conducting and music producing and different types of things. I moved to New York City. I was there for about 7 or 8 years. Then I moved to LA, where I've now been out here for, I think, about 18 years now. And it's been one progressive journey, as one project leads to another, and songwriting, by the way, sort of came a little later for me. I mostly was focused on the composing for picture, and then I started getting asked to write some songs, and some years ago, and I thought to myself, I think I can do that. Like I listen to the radio, I know what songs are, and now I've had the opportunity to write, many for the shows and projects I've been a part of, and so that's sort of been how my progression has been.
Oh, that's wonderful. Rupa, sort of a similar question, although a little different. What drew you to seek this type of work? I know a lot of times I meet with alumni out on the road, and they say, when you were 5 years old, did you think that you'd be an alumni director? And I said, no, absolutely not. But certainly, when it comes to advocacy work, when it comes to sort of that type of nonprofit work, how did your journey lead you to this role?
That's a complicated question because I started my career in the entertainment industry in India, and I was working with one of the largest publicly traded company, and was responsible mostly for box office success. Having done that, as you know, as I look Indian, I got into an arranged marriage and moved to United States in the year 2012. And did a little bit of work with Blistein Entertainment Partners. And at one point, I felt like I can do more if I start my foundation, because I truly believe that investing in first-time women filmmakers, storytellers, and even women in music means a lot to me personally. That's how the foundation started. I call it a miraculous mistakes, but it's better to do mistakes than doing none. So this is the foundation's work, and that's what we have been doing since the year 2014. And World Women Hour was such an ambitious project in the middle of the pandemic as well, because coordinating 60 women from 60 countries, telling each story in 60 seconds, and then collectively putting it as a 60-minute program. And there's too much information, it can become overwhelming, and then making the music piece at the center of everything, because that's the 3 minute 20-second of the song and the music really summarizes the movement. You need only one hero. If she can do it, so can you. and you just need one hero to look up to follow your heart and ambition. So pretty much, I grew up in a very small town in India. I'm the first girl to get education in my family. So this project really became a personal passion of mine, because I know what it means for people to see the value in you, because there is nobody open doors for me in my family, or I did not have any role models, but it were random people who were kind enough to open doors for me. So I think this movement is all about that. If you don't have somebody to look up to, still you can always find one hero to help you through your life.
Absolutely. Those are beautiful words. One of the things that struck me from both of you, sort of given these times that we live in, is the complexity that projects have become because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but then also sort of the faculty or the facilities that we have in terms of the technology that we have to bring people together. Can you talk a little bit about sort of your experience with that over the past year? Obviously, in terms of this particular project, but other projects that you're working on as well. How have sort of you surprised yourself, but also, the challenges that you've had to sort of overcome?
Rupa, do you want to?
I think you should talk about that more.
Okay. Well, it's funny. So much of the work that I do is solitary, and I do have a team of people that I bring on my projects, and many of them work from their own studios. And so in a way, things didn't really change too much for me in terms of a working process. One thing that definitely was affected by the pandemic was the ability to record live ensembles with any sort of a larger group. I think the last time I did that was just before the pandemic. And so that part has changed. But ironically, I don't know, that the life of a composer is sort of well adapted to this sort of hermit lifestyle. The thing that's probably changed the most is just how much food I've ordered in. But knock on wood, it hasn't been too large an adjustment from a sort of a working methodology standpoint.
And for us, this, of course, this is a very disruptive time, but disruptive in many good ways. This provides an opportunity to exponentially work through the technology and create more platforms for collaboration. And of course, it's a huge opportunity to monetize in many different ways, which might have been, looking from the business side, might have been not an opportunity. And in terms of talent, the dates and the other things that might have been an issue, I think this is a new phenomena, and this will stay and will create more opportunities, especially for the nonprofit world, and also folks on the entertainment side.
Absolutely. What would you say, Ryan? What would you say to composers sort of starting out, interested in producing or pursuing sort of a life in composition, but also specifically, for the individuals who have joined our conversation today, they're keenly interested in sort of the intersection of the art and the advocacy realm. What does that look like to you from your viewpoint, and what advice would you give to those burgeoning composers?
Advice on how to build a career?
Yes.
Yeah. Boy, I have so many thoughts about that. And
thought you might.
Yeah. So here's a few that come to mind. One, really learn your craft. Really learn like how to do the job, all aspects, wear every hat that you possibly can, because if you might get to a point where you'll hire people to do those things for you, but it really helps to know how to do all the different jobs yourself. You know, it helps when you're managing people that you understand what tasks you're asking them to do, how it gets done, that if you need to jump in to help out, that you can do that. In the beginning, I would say yes to everything. I did. I said yes to every single opportunity that came my way. It made no difference what it was. The smallest of tasks. I mean, to give an idea, I remember when I was living in New York and I was wearing all these different hats to make a living, and somebody would give me a call out of the blue and say, "Hey, do you use Finale? You know, the music notation software?" And I say, "Yeah, I do." And they say, "I have a Finale file that I just needed to print out. Can I do that?" And I'm like, "Sure. You know, come on over and use my printer." Like, you never know, like, you know, who you're going to meet, and every opportunity sort of leads to another. So I would say yes to everything. Keep a very open mind to, you know, learning about all different styles of music, and be very patient with yourself as far as building a career. These careers are very much journeys, as opposed to sprints. They're marathons, and uh, I encourage people to measure your success over long periods of time, as opposed to thinking like, well, how am I doing this week versus last week, or how am I doing this month versus last month? Try and think of it like, how am I doing this year versus last year, or these 5 years compared to the 5 years before? And be very patient, because it takes a long time to sort of build a career, meet people, learn how to do what you do, hone your skills, you know, build relationships and a resume and experience. And boy, I could say so many different things about how to build a career, but maybe I'll just leave it at that and see if any other questions come up later.
No, I think that was great. And, you know, I think especially in these days and times where we are not only eager and, you know, almost impatient in terms of what the next step may be, all being cooped up in our own, you know, personal spaces, it can be easy to start letting your mind wander and say, well, why isn't this happening? Why isn't this happening? So it's always, I think, really reassuring to hear from both of you. You know, these things take time. Projects take time, and the type of work that, you know, you're involved in, it doesn't look at things in terms of, you know, moments. It's really sort of months and years. So you really have to sort of reorient your perspective to match that expectation. So Rupa, can you tell me a little bit about, you know, sort of in that vein, you know, the complete extent of this project? You know, how many months, years even, did it take to go sort of from the first idea that you had with this to where we are right now?
So I was texting a friend of mine in Indonesia, with whom I had a good fortune to work in India 15 years ago. And I was sharing this idea with him about the 60 women, 60 countries, and 60 seconds. And he said, it's a good idea, we should do. I said, okay, let's do it. And then we sent out a few emails to folks that we thought would get interested, and without asking a question, will jump on the madness with us. And we were fortunate enough to find 28 people from around the world in, you know, 4 different time zones join the madness, you know. And as I said, you know, I always believe in doing miraculous mistakes, and you know, what can go wrong? You know, I think it was a good try, and the campaign itself became viral. We started planning in the month of May, and
Okay.
actually started filming in the end of July. So we had only 3 months time to pull this project. And bringing 20 corporations on board, and starting a conversation with Ryan. And apart from that, you know, we did not aim at becoming a campaign which will become viral. What we wanted to speak is to speak to the hearts and minds and of the people at a time where everything seemed so gloomy and difficult. So, and we ended up becoming a viral campaign with 42.7 million, footprints globally, and being featured on Facebook Watch and being featured on New York Stock Exchange. And even the song reaching out to countries where English is not their language, and yet, getting this incredible response from countries like Palestine, Israel, Brazil, Colombia. I mean, really speaks that music like this can cross boundaries, can reach hearts, and it was a mind-blowing experience for me to sit back and watch what was happening. I was like, oh boy, I learned so much.
That's amazing. And Ryan, I can't help but wonder, and I wonder if you can add to this, is the feeling, is the artistic process and the follow through different with these types of projects than, for instance, a mega feature, like a summer blockbuster kind of project?
In some ways, no, because in some ways they're very similar, because when, like Rupa was just saying, which I thought was a beautiful way of saying it, that it wasn't the intention to go viral, it was the intention of where it comes from and what the purpose of it is. And I think all projects creatively, you can have lots of conversations about, what it's for and why you're doing it, but when it really comes down to it, and you're actually creating the music, you're sitting at a keyboard, or whatever your instrument might be, it almost doesn't matter, like, all the conversations that happen. It's like, now you need to translate that into something that has meaning through music, and that comes from a feeling, and that feeling has to be genuine each time, that I'm working on a project, and it really, in a way, is not as important as for like what the project is or how many eyes might see it. It really has to come from sort of a true place. And for me, that always comes from a feeling. I feel like if I were to oversimplify the meaning of music, I think that music is emotion. It makes you feel. And that's why music is in movies and television, is because it's there to make you feel something. It's an oversimplification. It can do a lot of other things. It can tell time and place, and it can help tell story parts, and there's all different things that music does that we all know. But at the root of it, it's about coming from a place of emotion. And in that way, I feel like all projects that I work on have a sort of similar truth to them, because that's the kernel that I'm always looking for when I'm writing.
Wow. Rupa, what action do you hope, Ryan spoke about feeling, and I think, watching, looking up, it very much evokes a feeling, at least within me. What action do you hope that people take once they've seen the video, or once they've seen one or all of the different videos? What are you hoping sort of is the next step?
So I will share with you some of the impact that we are seeing, that can give some context to the audience. So we took the song to a school in Palestine, which is in the middle of a war zone. And when the girls in that school, sitting in the rubbles of those classrooms, listen to that music, and they're sharing that, okay, they now have somebody to look up to, and that's their teacher who's teaching them in the classroom in spite of the war, in the middle of the war. I think this really speaks what music can do and how you can create a movement through the music. Because of internet, and the bandwidth that they don't have, we were not able to show them all the 60 minutes. So we could only show them 3 minutes 20 seconds, which was just the song, which really summarizes the impact.
Mm-hmm.
And then we took the same content to a school in Kenya, and these were girls between the age of 11 to 16, And mostly these girls are survivors of child marriage or some sort of human trafficking survivors. And when these girls, watched this song, they clearly came up with the names of people they are looking up to redefine their lives. So as I'm speaking with you, you can imagine what kind of, and we are taking this song to 60 schools around the world because if you can see it, you can be it. And that's what looking up is all about. And that's we are continuing to do that. And a lot of credit goes to Elizabeth Russo and Ryan to create this partnership and come up with a song that speaks to all ages, even in irrespective of which country we are playing. And that's a great case study to show what music can do in terms of impact. Talk about difficult subjects in a creative way, in a positive way, and bring more meaning to and healing to the world.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think it's what a beautiful way to be able to bring that. It's truly remarkable. So that's actually, it dovetails into my next question, which is, you both do such different lines of work, or at least in terms of your day-to-day. Talk to me a little bit about sort of these common threads in your work and what keeps you going in these difficult times.
I will let Ryan go first.
Well, what keeps me going is that I love what I do. And when I'm not doing music, it's almost impossible for me to separate music from me. It's been my entire life, and I've been playing music since I was 11. When I'm not writing it or playing it, I'm thinking about it. Or if I'm listening to music, I'm analyzing it. I'm sure, like all the musicians who are listening right now, who find it difficult to not just passively have music play in the background. Everyone's actively listening. And so I truly can't imagine my life without music, because I've never really had to live without it, and I've always, when you do it for a living, you grow as a person as you are growing through your career. So all of your lessons that you're learning in life, your trials and tribulations, your ups, your downs, it's all kind of being done through music or in tandem with music. So what keeps me going is that I love what I do, and I love that it is such an endless world to be learning from. I remember when I first got into music, it just felt like I was just standing in front of, encyclopedias worth of information. And it's like, how am I going to learn all of this? It's like, what's that instrument and what's that style and how'd you record that and how'd you get that to do that? And and I still feel that way. It's there you can never learn enough. And so that's what keeps me going. And when I'm not working on music, I find myself just thinking about music and what I'm going to do next. So that's what keeps me going.
That's great. Rupa?
It's beautifully said. As simple as it is, I love what I'm doing too. And I don't see it as work. It's something I live, breathe, eat, walk, and most importantly, I think coming from a creative field and working in advocacy, I can really blend creativity and cause quite seamlessly. It's because I see always possibilities in everything. I think we have an opportunity to spread positivity and also give people the possibilities, what's possible. And I think the way I see my life is in 3 P's. It's about possibilities, spread positivity, and look for a purpose and go for it.
I love that. I'm writing that down right now. So something for me to put on a Post-it right above my computer every day as as I come down. Well, I think certainly this time has been all about sort of advice and wisdom. Are there any other sort of, when you think about your journey and when you think about sort of the work that was put into this project, do you guys have any advice for alumni who are just getting out into the working world, especially in these times?
I think Ryan spelled out really loud in his advice already about, finding something that really moves you are passionate about, and something that you can translate in music. I guess that's the kind of audience I'm speaking to. And dream, but dream in detail and do the dream. That's important. And coming from a small town, I cannot even paint the picture from where I come from. I dreamed a lot in detail. And that's what I go back and tell my team all the time. It's great, we have big dreams, but tell me the dream in detail and get me a plan and tell me how do we do the dream. And once we have that, I think, there is endless possibilities, doors that open, and always seeing yourself as part of everybody else also is key in no matter what field are you working in. I think that's the way you create great work, and the work that is memorable and receives a lot of love.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one thing that I would say on that same subject is know that you have, when the collective you or the individual yous, for whoever may be listening, that you have a voice. And it took me a while in my career to even sort of have the confidence to think that anyone would even care, that if I had something to offer or say, or that I felt like I even had something to offer or say. And it took me a lot of years to sort of build up that sort of confidence in a way, and which turns into advocacy. And now at this point in my career, I've done more things with advocacy than I had earlier on. At this point, I have had the honor of walking the halls of Congress with ASCAP to be able to advocate for the rights of musicians. I serve on the Recording Academy for the Grammys, the Recording Academy LA chapter. I'm a governor in the LA chapter, and I serve on, or I did recently serve on the advocacy committee, and I never thought that I would be a part of something like that, but it really, I find it really makes a difference, to know what's happening in the world and see how you may be able to contribute to it, I think it just sort of comes in time. It's like when I was younger, I wouldn't have thought like, oh yeah, I'll walk the halls of Congress. Like it sort of takes time, but you realize that as you do it more, that perhaps you do have experience, to share, and you can make an impact. And so it's incredibly humbling, to hear what Rupa says, that the work that we do can resonate with people in different countries and different ages. And so I encourage everyone to know that in one way or another, you have a voice, and to use it as best you can.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So I think, given the time, we're going to turn things over to the audience Q&A. So there's a couple of questions that have been queuing up. If you are interested in asking a question, I say please don't be shy. Just go ahead and enter your question under the question tab in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we will certainly get to it where time is available. So our first question is from Philip Richard, and the question is for Ryan. Ryan, Philip really wants to know sort of, how do you find most of your work? How does that process sort of generate? And do you have an agent?
I do have an agent.
Okay.
And I would say that I find my work in a lot of different ways, but probably one of the biggest ways that I find work is through recommendation. Some work I get is from people I've worked with before who reach out again. Some work are people recommending me for things. Sometimes I get calls out of the blue from nowhere, like someone I have never met before, or someone will reach out. Some work comes through my representation, and it's sort of a tapestry of different areas, which I think is why it's important to look at it as a marathon, because it sort of takes time, to build it takes a lot of time to build a career, and to learn things and make mistakes, and so when it comes to building a career, I know I was mentioning it before, but patience is really important, because I have seen people in our industry who hit it really hard. They're the ones at the parties who are like talking up a big game, and they're full of energy, and they're talking about this, that, and the other thing. And sometimes I have found those are the people that burn out first. And 3 years later, I'm not seeing them on the scene any longer. And so I think it's really important to pace yourself and to live to work another day. All of these industries that we're interested in, whether it be music or film, television, games, virtual reality, augmented reality, extended reality, all different types of things, these mediums will be here tomorrow. They'll be here a year from now. The important thing is that you're here tomorrow and that you're here a year from now. So I highly encourage people to be patient and make sure you don't burn out. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, physically and mentally, so that you can continue to work and be on the progression of building a career.
I think one of the items that both of you share is such a passion for the work that you do, and it's also sort of woven into your DNA. So to your point, Ryan, are there, and this question is for Rupa as well, are there any tools or tricks that you use in sort of that self-care toolkit that you could recommend, that you say, when I'm not working on, a film or a project, this is what I'm doing to sort of recharge my battery?
I
definitely have thoughts about that. Yeah, do you want me to? Well, go ahead.
So I'm also a student. When I'm not working, I try to go back to school and unlearn things to learn new things. I consider myself, and I find, having access to education in this lifetime for me has been a privilege. So I often go back to school, and currently I'm pursuing my doctoral program. So for me, pursuing education has been a new way of looking at things that I'm working on.
And I was going to say the exact same thing, which is keep learning, take an interest in the world, especially for music, because if you're scoring movies or television, you are a storyteller, and you just happen to be the one who's holding a composing pencil or a keyboard, or you're a storyteller through your art form of music, but even larger than that is that you're a storyteller. And so to be a storyteller hopefully means that you maybe have some stories to tell or some experiences from which to draw upon. And so I would encourage everyone to always be learning. I was going to literally say the exact same thing, that Rupa was saying, always be learning, and take an interest in the world. Taking it, like if I'm not doing music, I could spend hours online, just like I could spend just months on Wikipedia, you know, just clicking, you know, from article to article, and, you know, just pick a subject, and it's like, you know, what was World War II all about? How'd that come about? You know, like, and you can go on that page and you can, you know, see, oh yeah, I've heard of some of those people, like click on them and learn, like, you know, so constantly be learning. It's really good for the mind. And along with that is perhaps take up a hobby, you know, because you can take all of your passion and learn things from something else. You know, like I did. My hobby is flying. I'm a private pilot, and it's so mind expanding. You know, it's like I got into aviation because I just thought it would be interesting. But once I got into it, I realized just how large a world it is. You know, that you learn about the earth, you learn about the polarities of the earth, and you learn about weather and critical decision making and critical thinking and biomedical factors, and, you know, all of these things. And so if you take an interest in things, you learn about things, and so that all informs you as a person and as an artist.
That was great. So thank you both. We've got a little bit more time for just a couple more questions. I think this one is for Ryan. It's from I believe a young alum or student. What is the biggest, most impressive asset when choosing an intern, Ryan, would you say?
Well, I can speak on my own behalf because because perhaps different people look for different things, you know, from interns. I have hosted an internship program at my studio for the past 6 years or so. I have hosted many Berklee grads and alumni. And the things that I look for, which complement what I'm doing, are very strong Pro Tools skills, and really strong communication and language and spelling skills, and to be highly motivated, to be a self-starter. Usually when I have interns in the office, there's usually enough going on that no one's really twiddling their thumbs. You know, it's like we've got things to do and there are deadlines and there's a workload, and we do it. But at the times that there isn't something that is immediately obvious to do, it's very helpful to have somebody who is part of the team who is just on it and thinking about how can they do something and contribute. And I did the exact same thing when I was starting out. My very first professional gig was working for my uncle, Howard Shore, who is also a Berklee alum. And I remember Howard, right when I graduated from Berklee, my plan was to move to LA, where I am now, but Howard called me up and offered me 1 day of employment. That was the whole offer. It was 1 day. And I remember what he said. He said, why don't you come to the office and you can see how you like it? And I remember thinking at that time, I don't know very much about anything, but I know that what he probably means is, why don't you come into the office and I'll see how I like you. You know, is probably what he was thinking, you know. And so when I went into his office, I remember thinking, like, I like it here. I want to be in this office. Like, there's so much to learn. Like, look at these exciting projects that are happening. And I thought to myself, how can I contribute to this? You know, like, Howard seemed to be doing just fine before I arrived. You know, he didn't need me. And so I was like, what can I do to contribute to this office environment? And so I just started organizing things, and I just started creating databases of things that I saw that could maybe, you know, contribute. And then when I saw there was a need to do copy work, I was like, I'll learn Finale and I'll just start doing some of that. Even though I had never really used Finale up to that point, I just said that I could. And so I learned it, you know? And so, those are the sorts of things, you know, of finding a way to be useful. Those are part of the skills that I look for in an intern.
Well, I'm mindful of time. It is 2 o'clock, and I think on that note, in terms of bringing us full circle, in terms of looking up, in terms of leadership and mentorship and thinking about where we want to be and how do we get there and how do we look up to those around us to get us there. I'm going to leave us leave the panel here. I want to thank Ryan Shore and Rupa Dash for joining us this afternoon. You two have been amazing, and I'm sure we could talk all afternoon, more and more and more, about all the different projects. I know, Rupa, I've got about 50 different questions about mentorships, certainly because Berklee next month will be starting its very first mentorship initiative pilot, in which we're starting with about 250 alumni and 250 students, graduating students this spring. So don't be surprised if you get an email from me about how do we work those logistics.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you to you both. Thank you to everyone who attended. We hope that you enjoyed this afternoon, and we hope that the conversation piqued your interest, and that, as Ryan said, you know, that you're able to go and Google more and, you know, and really sort of go down that pathway. So with that, we hope that you stay well in these crazy times. And we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. With that, my name is Fritz Kinlins, and I hope you have a great afternoon. Take care.